They say nightmares don't begin with screams. They begin with confusion. Franz Kafka's The Trial is not a story about a crime. It's a story about what happens when a man wakes up one morning and discovers that the world no longer makes sense. And perhaps the most unsettling part of it all is how familiar it feels, even today. The book begins with a simple sentence. Someone must have been telling lies about Josef K, for without having done anything wrong, he was arrested one fine morning. There is no warning, no explanation, no reason, just a knock on the door, 2 guards, and the announcement that Josef K is under arrest, but not taken to jail, not interrogated, not told what he is accused of. He simply continues living his life, while now existing inside an invisible system that wants something from him, though he can't understand what. From the beginning, Kafka wants us to feel what Josef K feels: confusion. How do you defend yourself against a system that won't tell you the rules? How do you fight accusations you've never heard? How do you remain sane when the world treats your existence as evidence? Josef K is an ordinary man, not a hero, not a villain, just someone trying to keep his job, manage his relationships, and live a normal life. And then suddenly, he becomes a defendant in a trial that has no beginning, no clear process, and no end. A trial that seems to exist not to judge him, but to consume him. Kafka uses Josef K's journey to show us how systems, legal systems, bureaucratic systems, even the systems we create inside our own minds, can trap us without ever needing to explain how much of the book feels like wandering inside a maze. Josef K goes to courtrooms that seem abandoned. He meets judges who never explain their authority. He enters buildings where courtrooms are hidden inside attics. Everywhere he turns, he sees files, papers, laws, none of which he is allowed to read or understand. It is a world where rules exist, but only for those who have power. And isn't that frighteningly familiar? Think about your own life. How many times have you felt judged without knowing why? How many times have you been evaluated by people who never gave you clear expectations? How many times have you tried to do the right thing in a system where the rules seem to change every day? Kafka wasn't writing about law. He was writing about human experience, about the way society makes us feel guilty simply for existing, the way we question ourselves even when we've done nothing wrong, the way anxiety builds when we feel watched, misunderstood, or powerless. Josef K begins the story confident, even arrogant. He thinks he can reason with the court. He thinks he can charm his way out, argue his way out, even smile his way out. But the more he tries, the more he realizes the system is not interested in his explanations. It is not interested in justice. It is not interested in truth. It is only interested in itself. Kafka shows us a world where everyone participates in the system, yet no one understands it. Court officials obey rules they don't question. Lawyers pretend to help, but secretly have no power. Defendants spend years waiting for decisions that never arrive. People whisper about the court, fear the court, respect the court, yet no one can describe what the court actually wants. It is a perfect metaphor for any situation where authority becomes so large and so distant that individuals lose their identity inside it. As Josef K moves through this universe, he becomes increasingly desperate. He visits a painter who explains that some people are acquitted, but not really. Their cases never truly end. They just hide the documents deeper in the system. He learns that lawyers may delay cases on purpose because delay is their only real skill. He discovers that the court operates in endless layers. Rooms filled with clerks, judges, files, and yet the decisions are already made before the trial even begins. Everything is symbolic. Everything is absurd. Everything is true. Kafka wasn't describing a specific government or political system. He was describing modern life. He was describing the feeling of being trapped inside processes you cannot influence. Immigration forms, financial institutions, social rules, hierarchies, expectations. He was describing the universal fear that no matter how good you are, no matter how hard you try, there is always a judgment waiting for you that you cannot see. And at the center of it all is one question. Why does Josef K feel guilty? Why does he accept the system instead of rejecting it? Why doesn't he walk away? Kafka suggests something subtle but terrifying. Josef K submits because he already believes he might be guilty of something, maybe not a crime, but something deeper: insufficiency, imperfection, disappointment, human flaws. It is the guilt people feel without knowing why. The guilt society teaches us, the guilt of not being enough. So Josef K obeys, not because he must, but because he thinks he should. The trial becomes a psychological mirror. If you were accused of something vague and undefined, would you instantly resist? Or would a part of you wonder, what if they're right? What if I did something wrong without knowing it? Kafka reveals how easily we internalize blame, how quickly we doubt ourselves, how naturally we surrender to systems that treat us as guilty until proven innocent. Throughout the book, Josef K's relationships fall apart. His job performance suffers, his confidence collapses, not because of the court's actions, but because of his fear of the court. Kafka shows that oppressive systems do not need to punish you. They simply need you to fear punishment, and you will destroy yourself. As the story progresses, Josef K's world becomes smaller. Every interaction becomes tense. Every hallway feels like a courtroom. Every stranger feels like a judge. His life stops being his own, and then comes the ending. Two men arrive. They tell him to follow. He does. Not because they force him, but because he no longer believes he has a choice. He is led outside the city. They hand him a knife. They expect him to participate in his own execution. And Josef K, exhausted, confused, broken, whispers, "Like a dog." Those are his last words. It is one of the most devastating endings in literature, not because he dies, but because he dies believing the system was right. Kafka's message is not about guilt or innocence. It is about how systems, large ones, small ones, social ones, internal ones, take away our ability to trust ourselves, how they turn us against our own instincts, how they make us doubt our worth, how they consume our spirit long before they destroy our body. The trial remains powerful because it forces us to ask, where in your own life do you feel like Josef K? Where do you feel judged without explanation? Where do you obey rules you don't understand? Where do you feel powerless? Where do you fear consequences that no one has actually spoken aloud? Kafka's world is absurd, but recognizably so. It reflects the anxiety of being human in a world that is too big, too fast, too complicated, too demanding. And maybe that's why the book ends the way it does. Not with clarity, not with justice, but with silence. Because the trial was never about Josef K, it was about us. So now let me ask you, not as a reader, but as a human being, do you think Josef K was destroyed by the system, or by his own fear of it?